Hi, and welcome back to Official John Hart. Periodization. Periodization. You've heard and seen some of my recent videos on how I believe bodybuilders, especially the long-term ones, let's just say lifters in general, okay? If you're a lifter in your local gym and you're trying to increase your lean muscle mass, reduce your body fat, male or female, does not matter. Periodization. That's a form of training wherein you are purposely having periods of training very, very hard, countered with periods of backing off a little bit. And you're doing so in the name of long-term gains, long-term progress, and doing so without injury. There's the key, okay? And I'm going to share with you today how I was involved in, back in May of 1992, actually, Joe Horrigan of the Soft Tissue Center. That was a sort of famous location, a sports medicine facility in Los Angeles, California. He outlined for me after I met David Shaw. David Shaw was a world-class powerlifter. I met him at the office one day. And Joe Horrigan outlined for me the process in which I should organize a workout using periodization for bodybuilding. No one had ever done that for me before that. I've never seen this done since. And so I'm going to share with you today the routine that I did and how in fact it did bump up my numbers quite a bit in a short period of time, 8 or 12 weeks, okay? So there was a form of powerlifting periodization, or I should say a powerlifting program called linear periodization. And in this workout, we applied linear periodization in a bodybuilding format. And so you're going to see right now, I'll put it up on the screen, what it looks like. And over the course of 8 weeks, I took the 8-week route quite often because, again, I was married to my bodybuilder mentality, which was get results sooner. You can do this over 12 weeks. It drags it out a little further, but in the course of 8 weeks, I would start out in the first, it was about 2-week segments. In the first couple of weeks of those 8, I would start off with a rather low intensity and of effort. And I would use, percentage-wise, a lower percentage of my maximum weights that I wanted to use in a bodybuilding range of, let's say, 6 repetitions being the lowest number I would use. So I will take, for example, in this video, the squat motion. So in the squat, if my max at the time was 365 for 5, or 6, 365 for 6, and I wanted to get 385 for 6, that's a 20-pound jump. So how would I go about doing it? Rather than just slapping on the extra 10 on each side and hauling ass and going, all right, I'm just going to do it today, which may be a little bit traumatic to the system. And when you're in your 20s, you can do such things and get away with it quite often. That I see as being a problem once you get into your 30s, 40s, 50s. I was at the time in 1992, I was in my 20s. I was still in my 20s, my late 20s. And so I was 28. And this was such an experience that was undeniable. I didn't have any tweaks or strains that I had to go along with this, and I implemented forms of this to this very day. So I don't just jump in the gym and start blasting away indiscriminately. I ramp up my numbers over the course of 8 weeks. And some of you all in my private training community, you do know that's what I do. So I don't just go in and throw weights on up there. So how did I do it back then? The routine, as I just showed you up on the screen, involved having a few sets of the basic exercises at a lower intensity in the first couple of weeks, with planned increases in weight over the course of those 8 weeks, so that at the end of the 8 weeks, I would be squatting for 6 repetitions instead of 365, I would be doing 375. And then back off, take a week off from training, start the cycle all over again. But the next time, I would start the cycle with an additional 10 pounds. And I would end it with an additional 10 pounds, hitting my goal of 385 for 6 repetitions. Now, what would happen over the course of those 8 weeks? First couple of weeks, I would be doing 2 or 3 sets of squats with a moderate weight, not even close to momentary muscular failure. This was the key to being able to do 2 or 3 sets. I didn't take the last set to failure, none of that. And I did that for 2 weeks. The next 2 weeks after that, I'd bump up the weight and I'd go for it again. I'd cut back the sets from, say, 3 to 2. So now I'm in week 4. After week 4, I'd go weeks 5 and 6, and I'd start cutting back that volume so that by week 6, I'd be doing 1 set of working weight. And so week 7 and 8, I was purely looking at numbers here. I was getting into no man's land. I was getting to my previous best in week 7, or week 6, I should say. My previous best of 365. And then week 7, I would be at 370, and then week 8, 375. That week 7 and week 8, I was just doing 1 set of 6 repetitions. And I would get it both of those weeks. And to quote Joe, back in the day, Joe Horgan, he used to say to me, if you're not nervous when you get around weeks 6, 7, and 8, then you're doing something wrong. Because you know you're lifting weights that you had not lifted previous. And when you start the very next cycle, instead of starting where you did in cycle 1, the first 8-week cycle, you're going to add 10 pounds to that next cycle. And now you're aiming to end it at 385. That's what I did. And so he wrote a nice article wherein I not only used that linear periodization to increase and bump up the weights on my power movements, my squat, my dumbbell bench press, my deadlift. Those were my 3 big lifts I was using at the time, and I got exceedingly strong, especially on my dumbbell bench presses. Not only did I use it, for that, but I also included some accessory bodybuilding exercises that I did come closer to failure at the beginning of that cycle. I would ramp that intensity up too, week by week. So it wasn't exactly linear periodization as a powerlifter would use, because I would hit single set training very soon, around week 6 or week 5 of going to failure or near failure, because I was nearing my maximum weights. Powerlifters still wouldn't be going to total failure at that point, like I was. But I modified it by cutting back sooner to just the 1 set, whereas a powerlifter wouldn't do that until they got near the end of that 8-week cycle. Or at least that was the linear periodization model that I was shown. Let's put it that way. You can incorporate this into your bodybuilding training. And how many other exercises would I use? For legs, for example, whereas I would do that squat motion, I would use another exercise, such as a hack squat or a leg press. Something wherein I could get a standard bodybuilding 8 to 12 reps, more repetitions, and pump that out. And I would do a set of those, and I would do it to the point where it was to failure. As each week would go by, I would get closer and closer to training to failure. But certainly those first 3 weeks of the cycle wasn't anywhere near that. I was holding back on purpose and ramping up my intensity levels over the course of the 8 weeks. So this is something that's key to training in this manner. It's long-term planning. And it's not just long-term planning as in 8 weeks. It's long-term planning as in taking 6 months of your year even, right? To do this. You could do 3 cycles in a row just to get stronger. Every year, as you all know in my training community, I do my powerlifting. I use periodization. Every winter I've done this, and I continue to share it with my training community. Hope you consider joining the group. I'll put a link down below in this video's description so you can see more details on how I have been recently using it in recent years. But hopefully you'll consider using some sort of periodization in your own training. This is, again, the simplest linear periodization cycle and adapted to a bodybuilding lifestyle that worked very, very well for me. I'll put up more, I'll get you some more information. I would consider increasing your calories just slightly as you go through that cycle, toward the end of the cycle, to help ensure that you have the energy, to help ensure that your body is recovering and increasing its lean muscle mass as you get near the end of that cycle, and to help avoid any kind of overtraining so you can hit your numbers. So that's it for today. Some food for thought for the bodybuilder, and you don't need to be. Again, I did that cycle at 28 years old, multiple cycles at 28 years old. I loved it so much I've continued to hold on to that principle and that pattern to this day. Annually, I use it. And I've been able to avoid injuries at 60 now. So this has been a long-term project for me. That's 32 years of having some sort of periodization involved in my training. I never just go in the gym and throw the weight on there and go all out. That's a habit that I have. Even when it comes to my normal high-intensity training, I just don't go in the gym and start blasting away. I take a couple of weeks to ramp up that intensity level. So it carried over into my bodybuilding, even my blasting bodybuilding. So that's it. Hope you consider some of that. Before you go, off to my left, you're going to see the disc pop up. That disc right there is a subscribe button for my channel. Please consider hitting that and letting YouTube notify you when I have new videos pop up. Down below and off to your left, you're going to see the thumbs up button right there. That lets YouTube algorithm know how much you're liking my videos, and it's great for driving traffic to my channel. Please hit that thing. It lights up the algorithm and it lights me up too. I'll see you soon.